It started on a quiet night, the kind of night when everything felt peaceful. No noise, no wind, just the calm hum of the world sleeping. The stars above Earth shone bright and steady, like they had for thousands of years. But on that night, something changed. At first, no one noticed. A single star in the northern sky seemed to shift just a little. It was so small no telescope would have even cared. But within hours, thousands of people began to see it. Stars that had stayed in the same place for all of human history were moving. Across the planet, people came outside and pointed to the heavens. Phones recorded videos. Live streams began. In the cities, the sky was glowing brighter than usual. In the countryside, old farmers stared up with confusion. The stars were not twinkling anymore. They were gliding, slowly but clearly. By midnight, every observatory in the world was awake. Scientists ran their instruments, checking and rechecking, but the numbers made no sense. Stars don't move like that, not in hours. Not in days. Something was wrong. In a small observatory in Chile, a young astronomer named Dr. Aria Hale sat alone, watching her monitors. She had spent her whole life studying the night sky. She knew every constellation like an old friend. But now even those friends were betraying her. She whispered to herself, "This can't be right." On her screen, the constellation of Orion had shifted nearly 2 degrees in less than 6 hours. That was impossible. It should take thousands of years for such a change. Aria zoomed in. The light from one of the stars flickered in a strange rhythm. Not random, not natural. Almost like a pattern. Her hands trembled as she ran a light spectrum analysis. The results froze her. The star wasn't burning gas. It was metallic. It was reflecting sunlight, not creating it. It wasn't a star, it was something else. Aria sent her data to the Global Space Agency. Within minutes, her computer pinged back. A secure message. Data confirmed. Maintain silence. You are not to speak of this outside the network. Her stomach dropped. The government knew something. They had been tracking the same movement for weeks, maybe months. By morning, social media exploded with videos. The stars are alive. Alien invasion? NASA is hiding the truth. News anchors tried to calm the world, but even they looked afraid. Because the truth was, no one had an answer. Then it got worse. On the third night, people noticed the stars weren't just moving anymore. They were getting brighter. Dozens of points of light now blazed stronger than Venus. Astronomers tried to explain it as a cosmic illusion, but the panic had already begun. In New York, traffic stopped as people flooded the streets, staring upward. In Tokyo, the sky looked like a storm of diamonds, each one glowing and shifting position. And then, right before dawn, something impossible happened. The stars blinked off. For 3 seconds, the sky went completely dark. No stars, no light, just a black, endless void. Then they came back, but not where they had been before. They had rearranged themselves, in a perfect circular pattern. Across the world, the same shape appeared above every horizon, 12 bright stars forming a ring in the heavens. It looked designed. It looked intelligent. The world held its breath. Every satellite, every radar, every telescope locked onto the formation. Governments activated emergency protocols. Fighter jets were launched. The United Nations called an immediate meeting. Aria Hale watched from her control room, heart pounding. The stars of the objects were now emitting radio waves. A repeating signal. At first it was just static. Then slowly a pattern formed, a pulsing beat. Over and over again in perfect rhythm. She recorded the signal and ran it through translation software. The message was short. Only one word repeated again and again. Prepare. Her voice shook as she whispered it out loud. Prepare for what? The message stopped. The lights in the sky froze. For a moment, Earth was silent. No planes, no engines. Not even the wind dared to move. Then, one by one, the stars began to drift closer. They were no longer dots of light. They were shapes. Metallic, structured, glowing with blue energy. Massive objects, each the size of mountains. Aria watched as her telescope auto-adjusted. The computer measured their distance, no longer millions of miles away. Now only a few 100,000 kilometers above Earth. They were coming. People screamed, prayed, recorded, or ran. But there was nowhere to go. The stars that had guided humanity for ages were no longer silent. They had come alive, and as the world looked up in terror and wonder, one truth became clear. The stars above Earth had begun to move. And they were moving toward us. For 3 long nights, the stars kept moving closer. At first, people hoped it was a dream, some strange natural event, maybe a trick of the atmosphere. But by the 4th day, no one could deny it anymore. The stars were real objects, and they were entering Earth's orbit. Across the planet, fear turned into chaos. Governments declared emergency states. Borders were closed. Fighter jets filled the skies, circling like angry insects around something too big to understand. From her observatory in Chile, Dr. Aria Hale hadn't slept in days. Her monitors showed massive structures now clearly visible through telescopes. They were not meteors or asteroids. They had edges, symmetries, and design. Each one looked different. Some shaped like massive rings, others like dark pyramids. Some even rotated slowly, casting long shadows over the clouds. There were 12 of them, just like the 12 stars that had formed the ring in the sky. No one could agree on what they were. Satellites sent back images, but signals kept cutting out whenever they got too close. The objects seemed to interfere with all communications. And then, the countdown began. It started as faint radio noise, a pattern repeating every few seconds. Aria played the recording through her speakers. It was rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. She fed it into her translation system. After an hour of analysis, a line of numbers appeared on her screen. It was a timer, 84 hours. That was all. The same signal was soon detected worldwide. The objects were broadcasting the same countdown in every known frequency. People demanded answers. Was it a warning, a threat, or a message of peace? The world watched the numbers fall. 60 hours, 40 hours, 20. No one slept. No one knew what would happen when it reached 0. At the United Nations Emergency Center, the top minds and leaders of the world gathered. Among them was Aria Hale, invited for her discovery of the first signal. Her hands shook as she spoke before the room. "They are communicating," she said softly. "Not randomly. It's organized." "They're aware of us," a general interrupted her. "Aware of us or targeting us?" Harrier looked up at the large screen showing live footage from orbit. "I don't know," she whispered, "but they're not natural. And they're not leaving." When the countdown finally reached 0, the world held its breath. At that exact second, the skies erupted in light. Every city, every country saw the same thing. Beams of blue energy stretching from the 12 ships down toward Earth. But they didn't hit the ground. They stopped mid-air, forming 12 shimmering columns that reached miles high. The air vibrated. Electronics failed. The internet went down in seconds, and then, through every device that still worked, phones, radios, old TVs, a voice spoke. Calm, deep, not human. "People of Earth, do not fear. We are not your enemies. We are the architects. We come from beyond your stars. Your sun is failing. Your time is short." The voice echoed through cities, towns, and forests. People froze in the streets, listening. "We built your sun. We shaped your world. And we have returned to correct what is broken." For a moment there was silence. Then panic returned. The architects? Builders of the sun? It made no sense. At her observatory, Aria replayed the message again and again. The translation was perfect. No distortion. Whoever they were, they spoke Earth's languages perfectly, as if they had been studying humanity for centuries. Hours later, space agencies detected strange activity near the sun itself. The ships, or whatever they were, had fired massive energy beams toward it. Scientists shouted over each other, trying to calculate the readings. The solar temperature dropped by 1%, then 2, then 3. Aria's stomach twisted. "They're changing the sun," she whispered. Her assistant, a young intern named Kai, stared in horror. "Why would they do that?" "They said they came to help." Aria looked out through the telescope at the glowing ring in the sky. "Maybe. Their idea of help isn't the same as ours." Within days, the world began to notice changes. The sunlight grew weaker. Days felt colder. Plants started to wilt. Power systems that relied on solar energy began to fail. The architects sent no more messages. Their ships hung silently above the planet like watchful gods. People built shelters, afraid of what would come next. Governments begged for communication. But there was no reply. In the darkness of her lab, Aria studied the signal again. She slowed it down, frame by frame. Hidden beneath the words was another layer, faint, almost invisible. It wasn't a translation error. It was a second message buried inside the first. She enhanced the sound until the hidden words became clear. "Prepare For correction. Arya's blood ran cold. Correction. What does that mean? But deep inside, she already knew. The stars hadn't come to save Earth. They had come to change it, and whatever correction meant. Humanity wasn't ready. The world grew darker with each passing day. The sunlight that once warmed the oceans now felt weak, pale and cold. People looked up and saw the sky dimming, not because of clouds, but because the sun itself was fading. Governments told everyone to stay calm. They said it was temporary, but the truth couldn't be hidden for long. Crops stopped growing. Temperatures dropped across the globe. The nights grew longer and colder, and above it all the 12 massive ships still hung in the sky, silent, unmoving, watching. They didn't attack. They didn't speak again. They just stayed there. Their blue lights glowed faintly in the upper atmosphere like eyes in the dark. In the freezing halls of the Global Research Center, Dr. Arya Hale sat surrounded by screens. Her fingers trembled from exhaustion. She hadn't seen the sun in days. Satellite data showed that Earth was losing energy, not from the sun itself, but from something draining it. "It's them," she whispered. "The architects." Her assistant, Kai, looked pale. "You think they're stealing energy?" Arya nodded. "No, not stealing. Using it. For something." She pointed to the data. Around the world, the architects' ships were projecting beams of light down to specific locations. Each beam struck the same kind of object. Huge metallic towers that had appeared overnight. They weren't built by humans. They just appeared, grown, like machines that had sprouted from the ground itself. The architects called them energy conduits in their message, but Arya didn't trust that. She traveled to one of the sites in northern Canada, where the air was filled with a soft hum. Snow covered the forests, and in the middle of it all stood one of the glowing towers. It was taller than any building she had ever seen, smooth and silver, covered in strange moving lights. The closer she got, the stronger the humming became. It wasn't random. It was rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. A military team guarded the perimeter. Arya flashed her scientist ID and entered with Kai beside her. Inside, the tower was warm. Too warm for the freezing weather outside. "What's powering it?" Kai asked. Arya pressed her hand against the metal surface. It pulsed beneath her fingers like it was alive. "Something beneath the ground," she said quietly. Suddenly, the tower emitted a low vibration. The lights shifted, and for a brief second, the walls became transparent. What Arya saw made her heart stop. Behind the metallic shell were tanks, dozens of them, each filled with a glowing blue liquid. Inside floated something. Human shapes, motionless, Kai gasped. "Are those people?" Arya's voice trembled. "No, they're not alive. They're copies." Each figure looked almost human. Same faces, same DNA, but something was off. Their eyes were black, empty, lifeless. She scanned one of the tanks and froze when her own name appeared on the monitor. Subject, Arya Hale, genetic sequence identified. Her breath caught. "They have me. My DNA. How?" Kai looked terrified. "What if they took it from the signal network?" "From our satellites." Arya's mind raced. "No! This isn't random. They've been watching us for years." Back at headquarters, she confronted the generals. "They said they built the sun," she said angrily. "But maybe they built us too. These towers, they're not repairing the planet. They're rewriting it." No one wanted to believe her. But more evidence came in. Strange readings from every tower site. The ground beneath them was warming rapidly. The magnetic field around Earth was changing. One scientist whispered, "It's like they're rebooting the planet." Then came the second signal. Every tower lit up in unison, sending beams back into the sky. The 12 ships responded with a low, thunderous hum that shook the air itself. Across the world, every device, every phone, radio and screen flickered with the same message. The correction begins. "Remain calm. Humanity will be preserved." Arya stared at the glowing screen. "Preserved?" she repeated. "That's not the same as saved." The ground beneath the tower began to crack. Blue light spilled out, spreading like veins of lightning across the snow. Soldiers shouted. Machines sparked. The air was filled with energy. Kai grabbed Arya's arm. "We have to leave." She didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the tower. Inside it, one of the human figures opened its eyes, glowing bright white. They ran as the tower roared to life. The ground erupted behind them, sending a wave of heat through the icy air. From the sky, the 12 ships shone brighter than ever. Their blue light washed over the world, turning night into a strange metallic dawn. For the first time, everyone understood. The architects hadn't come to repair Earth, they were remaking it, and humanity along with it, and if they succeeded, there would be no humans left. Only their corrected versions. The world was no longer the same. The sky had turned pale and cold. The towers that the architects built glowed day and night, spreading blue light across cities and oceans. Wherever their light touched, things began to change. Forests grew strange metallic leaves. Rivers shimmered with silver dust. And in some towns, people who got too close to the towers never came back the same. Their eyes turned white. Their voices changed. They spoke words no one understood. Humanity was losing itself, but Dr. Aria Hale refused to surrender. She had seen too much. She knew the truth now. The architects weren't gods or saviors. They were engineers, and Earth was their unfinished project. Humanity was simply in their way. Aria worked underground in a secret base built inside an old mountain bunker. The world's governments had fallen silent, but small groups of soldiers, scientists and civilians had gathered there to fight back. They called themselves the Human Accord. Around a dusty metal table, they studied holograms of the architect towers. 12 of them around the globe, all connected, all feeding power to something larger, something hidden deep beneath the surface. Aria pointed to the glowing lines. They're trying to restart Earth's core. They call it correction, but it will kill everything we know. A soldier named Captain Jonas slammed his fist on the table. Then we destroy the towers. Aria shook her head. You can't. Every tower has a defense field stronger than anything we can build, but... She hesitated. There might be another way. She tapped on her tablet and brought up an old, forgotten file. Marked Project Aegis was a secret plan buried decades ago by the World Space Defense Program. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a pulse generator, designed to mimic the energy of a star. The idea had been to protect Earth from alien threats. But the project was shut down. Too dangerous, too unstable. Aria looked at the team. If we can restart it, we might be able to fight them with their own power. Jonas frowned. You're talking about turning the Earth into a weapon. Aria nodded. It's either that or we watch them rewrite us into something else. They worked for days without rest. Deep in the mountain, engineers rebuilt the Aegis core, a glowing sphere of light humming with unstable power. Aria studied the frequencies of the architect's signals and adjusted Aegis to match them. Kai stood beside her. If this fails, it could destroy half the planet. Aria gave a tired smile. If we do nothing, they'll destroy the whole thing anyway. Then the architects finally moved. For the first time in weeks, the 12 ships above Earth shifted position. They aligned directly above the towers. Their lights grew brighter, almost blinding. Across the world, the towers began to rise. Huge metal roots pulled free from the ground, stretching toward the ships. The process of correction had begun. Aria shouted into her radio. Now, power up Aegis! The mountain shook as the giant machine came alive. The air hummed with energy. The lights flickered red, then blue. Jonas looked out the window at the sky. They know what we're doing. Aria's screens filled with data. The architect ships were focusing energy toward their location. A blue beam tore through the clouds, heading straight for the mountain. Hold it steady, she yelled. We only need 30 more seconds. The beam struck. The walls exploded. Fire and light filled the control room. Aria fell to the floor, covering her head. Kai screamed, We're hit! The system's overloading. Aria crawled to the console, blood on her face, and slammed her hand down on the activation switch. Now Aegis, fire! The machine unleashed a pulse of pure light, a wave that raced across the planet, brighter than lightning, louder than thunder. The towers flickered. The ships above them shuddered. For the first time, the architect's formation broke. One of the massive ships tilted, then exploded, scattering fragments of glowing metal across the sky. All over Earth, people looked up in disbelief. For the first time since the stars began to move, humanity had struck back. In the silence that followed, Aria heard a voice, deep, cold, and inside her mind. You have made a grave mistake, Aria Hale. She froze. "Who are you?" The voice echoed again. "I am the Architect Prime. You just killed your maker." Arya's breath caught. "You created us? We designed your form. We gave you fire and reason, but you are imperfect. We returned to correct you. Yet you resist your own evolution." The voice faded, leaving her trembling. Jonas helped her to her feet. "What did it say?" Arya looked at him with fire in her eyes. "It said we're their creation. But they don't understand something." He frowned. "What's that?" She looked at the glowing ruins of the Aegis console. "We might be their creation, but we're not their slaves." Outside, the broken pieces of a fallen architect ship burned across the night sky. The stars that once moved now looked wounded, but the war wasn't over. 11 ships still hovered above Earth, preparing for their next move, and Arya knew they wouldn't stop until every human was corrected. Still, for the first time she felt something stronger than fear. Hope, because now, humanity had an answer. The world was burning, not with fire from Earth but from above. The remaining 11 architect ships glowed in the sky like moons of fire. Their beams ripped across the oceans, their lights carved cities into shadows, and the towers they built pulsed with deadly energy. Humanity had fought back. But the cost was high. Power grids failed. Communications were gone. Millions of people had fled underground, and the cold, pale sun barely warmed the Earth. In the chaos, Dr. Arya Hale stood at the heart of the last operational Aegis station. The giant pulse generator hummed, glowing brighter than anything she had ever seen. Its energy radiated in waves across the planet, feeding hope into those who dared to resist. Kai, her assistant, stood beside her, shivering. "Can Aegis really stop them?" Arya shook her head. "It might not stop them, but it can fight with the same power they used to build suns. That's all we have." Her hands trembled as she adjusted the controls. The Aegis core pulsed like a heartbeat. She felt the energy inside it, wild and alive, almost like it was calling to her. The first ship moved. A massive triangle of metal and light descended toward Earth, sending a shockwave that flattened forests and shook mountains. The humans fired everything they had, missiles, EMPs, even experimental railguns, but nothing slowed it. Arya pressed her hand against the Aegis control panel. "I have to do this," she whispered. "I'm the only one who can channel it." Kai grabbed her arm. "Arya, you can't. It'll kill you." She looked at him with determination. "If I don't, humanity dies. If I do, maybe we can survive." With a deep breath, she activated the Aegis core. The pulse inside it surged violently. Her body became one with it. Energy ran through her veins. The air around the station vibrated, glowing blue and gold. The first ship fired its beam, striking the mountain. The Aegis responded. A counterwave of light shot into the sky, colliding with the beam in a violent explosion. Shockwaves ripped through the atmosphere. The ships began to falter. Blue energy flared across their hulls. Pieces of metal broke off and fell like shooting stars. Humanity watched in awe and fear. Arya felt her strength draining. The energy of a sun was too much for a human body. Her vision blurred. She could hear the voices of all the people on Earth, faint whispers calling her name, urging her forward. One by one, the ships started to burn. Fire spread across their surfaces. Metal bent, twisted, and exploded. The Architect's power, once so unstoppable, was being turned against them. The sun, dim and pale for weeks, began to glow again. The pulse from Aegis reached it, reigniting its flames. Light returned to the Earth, stronger than before. Clouds glowed gold. Rivers sparkled. Even the towers built by the architects began to crumble, their energy fading. Arya fell to the ground, exhausted. Her body was burned, her skin scorched from the energy she had channeled. Kai rushed to her side, tears in his eyes. "You did it. We did it." She looked up at the sky. Only a few fragments of the ships remained, drifting like dying stars. And then she heard a voice, familiar but different. "You were not meant to stop us. Yet you did. You are evolution." The voice was gone. Only silence remained. Arya closed her eyes and whispered, "We are not your creation. We are their challenge, their evolution." Across Earth, people emerged from shelters. They looked up at the glowing sun and the fractured remnants of the architect's fleet. For the first time in weeks, they felt warmth, hope, and awe in cities and forests, in deserts and mountains. Humanity realized something profound. They had fought back against beings who thought themselves gods. They had survived. They had adapted. They had risen. Even though the skies would never look the same, even though the memory of the towers and ships would haunt them, the people of Earth had one undeniable truth. They were free. And they had awakened. In the mountain bunker, Arya lay exhausted but alive. Kai held her hand. "Will they come back?" he asked. She looked at the sun rising above the horizon, brighter than ever. "Maybe, but it doesn't matter. They wanted to control us. They wanted to finish us. But they forgot one thing." She smiled faintly, her eyes shining with determination. "Humans are never finished. We evolve, we fight, we rise." Outside, the wind carried the warmth of a new day. The stars above Earth had stopped moving. For now. But humanity had learned its greatest lesson. The universe might be vast, the architects might be powerful, but the spirit of Earth would never bow. And in that moment, as the first golden rays touched the mountains, Arya Hale knew one thing for sure. The stars had fallen. But humanity had risen.